Scroll through any comment section under a phone review and you'll find the same fight. Someone posts a benchmark chart. An Apple fan says the A19 Pro destroys everything. An Android fan says Snapdragon or Dimensity actually wins in real games. Both sides have screenshots. Both sides are convinced. Here's the question this video actually answers. When people compare Apple Silicon to Android chips using the same benchmark number, are they even measuring the same thing? Short answer, usually not. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why the number itself can mislead you and what you should actually be comparing instead. Let's get into it. Every modern phone chip has multiple CPU cores, but not every chip maker agrees on what those cores should be for. Apple's A19 Pro uses 6 cores split into 2 groups, 2 performance cores that run up to 4.26 GHz with a large 16 MB cache built for short bursts of heavy work, and 4 efficiency cores that run much slower, around 2.6 GHz, with a smaller cache. Those efficiency cores exist specifically for everything your phone does when you're not actively pushing it checking notifications, running background sync, keeping the screen alive between taps. Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 takes a different approach. Instead of a small and large split, it uses 8 custom Oryon cores too. Prime cores clocked even higher than Apple's, up to 4.74 GHz, and 6 performance cores at up to 3.6 GHz. Notice what's missing? There's no dedicated small, low-power cluster. Qualcomm designed this generation to prioritize throughput across nearly every core, rather than keeping a separate low-power tier. MediaTek's Dimensity 9500 pushes that idea even further and just names it directly. MediaTek calls it an all-big core design. 1 Ultra core, 3 premium cores, 4 Pro cores. Every single core is a full-sized, high-performance core. No little cores anywhere in the layout. So here's the actual mechanism difference driving half of the arguments online. Apple is still betting that a phone spends most of its life idling, so it's worth carving out real silicon for dedicated low-power cores. Qualcomm and MediaTek are betting that modern phones are used hard, often enough gaming, AI features, camera processing that it's better to make almost every core capable of real performance, and manage power a different way. Neither bet is wrong. They're just different answers to the same question. You'll often hear that Apple always gets first access to the best manufacturing process, and that's why their chips win. That's outdated for this generation. Apple's A19 Pro is built on TSMC's upgraded 3nm node called N3P. Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 is also built on TSMC's 3nm N3P. MediaTek's Dimensity 9500, also TSMC's 3nm N3P. All 3 of this generation's flagship chips came out of the same manufacturing process at the same transistor density ceiling. That means that Apple has a secret factory advantage. Explanation doesn't hold up anymore if it ever fully did. When the factory is identical, the differences you actually see between these chips come entirely from design choices. How the cores are arranged, how memory is organized, how the software running on top of the chip is built. That's a much more interesting story than one company has better access to TSMC, and it's the story this video is actually about. This is the part that causes 90% of the arguments. People screenshot an AnTuTu score and treat it like a final verdict. Here's the problem. AnTuTu doesn't test one clean thing. It blends CPU performance, GPU performance, memory speed, and general responsiveness into a single number, and it does that using completely different graphics technology depending on the platform. On iPhone, it's testing through Apple's own graphics framework, Metal. On Android, it's testing through Vulkan or OpenGL, a different graphics pipeline built by a different set of engineers with different priorities. So when you see iPhone scored 2.5 million, Android scored 2.3 million, you're not comparing 2 chips doing the same task. You're comparing 2 chips doing different tasks that happen to get combined into one number that looks comparable. Geekbench is a bit more honest because it isolates CPU and memory performance specifically, using largely the same test code on both platforms. That's why you'll sometimes see reviewers say Geekbench numbers are roughly comparable, while AnTuTu numbers really aren't. But even Geekbench only tells you about short computational bursts. It doesn't tell you how the chip behaves after 10 minutes of gaming, how hot it runs, or how the software on top of it actually uses that power day to day. A benchmark app can only ever measure a narrow slice of what fast actually means to you. Here's a genuinely surprising one. Apple's unified memory architecture is often credited as the secret to why iPhones feel fast. The CPU, GPU, and neural engine all share one single pool of memory, 12 GB on the A19 Pro, with bandwidth up to about 75.8 GB per second. Now, here's the twist. Snapdragon's memory bandwidth number is actually higher. The 8 Elite Gen 5 reaches up to 84.8 GB per second. If you only looked at that one number, you'd assume Qualcomm wins the memory fight outright. But raw bandwidth isn't the whole story. Apple's advantage isn't about how much data can move, it's about how little it has to move in the first place. Because the CPU, GPU, and AI engine share the same pool, The GPU can start working on data the instant the CPU finishes with it, with no copying between separate memory banks. Traditional split memory designs, which is closer to how most Android chips are structured, sometimes need to shuffle data between separate zones before the next component can use it. That copying step costs time and power that a raw bandwidth spec sheet never shows you. So the honest takeaway here isn't Apple's number is bigger, it's smaller in this case. It's that how the memory is organized matters more than how fast the number on the box says it moves. Here's something almost nobody brings up in these comparisons, and it completely flips the MediaTek as the budget also ran narrative. When a company wants to build a chip using ARM's instruction set, ARM actually offers two different deals. One is a full architecture license. You get to design your own CPU core completely from scratch, as long as it still understands ARM's instructions. That's what Apple does, and it's what Qualcomm does with its Oryon cores. Both companies have their own internal silicon teams hand building every part of that core. The other option is a reference core license. ARM designs the entire core itself, and you just license the finished blueprint and drop it into your chip. That's what MediaTek does. Those C1 Ultra, C1 Premium, and C1 Pro core names on the Dimensity 9500 aren't MediaTek's own design. They're ARM's own next-generation core, built by ARM's engineers, simply licensed and configured by MediaTek. MediaTek didn't design a single transistor of that CPU core layout. And yet the Dimensity 9500, running someone else's off-the-shelf core design, posts single-core and multi-core scores that land right next to Apple's fully custom, hand-built A19 Pro. Think about what that actually means. Apple spends billions of dollars a year on a dedicated internal CPU design team. MediaTek picked a design out of a catalog, and the performance gap between built from scratch and licensed off the shelf has nearly disappeared this generation. The old assumption that custom silicon automatically means a better chip doesn't hold up the way it used to. Almost every phone GPU today, Apple's, Qualcomm's, ARM's uses something called tile-based rendering. Instead of drawing the entire screen in one continuous pass like a desktop graphics card does, the GPU chops the screen into tiny tiles and finishes rendering each one inside a small on-chip memory buffer before moving to the next. This matters because talking to main memory constantly is one of the most power-hungry things a chip can do, and phones can't afford a desktop-style memory system. So this isn't an Apple trick, it's basically the whole mobile industry solving the same battery problem the same way. The real difference shows up in how deferred the rendering actually is. Apple's GPU architecture and ARM's own Mali and Immortalis GPUs go a step further before they run the expensive shading calculations on a tile. They first work out exactly which pixels will actually be visible in the final image and only shade those. Anything hidden behind another object never gets shaded at all, which saves real power in busy scenes. Qualcomm's Adreno GPU takes a hybrid approach. It still bins the scene into tiles to save memory bandwidth, but handles more of the actual shading in a traditional order within each tile rather than fully sorting visibility first. In simple scenes, the difference is barely noticeable. In crowded, detailed game scenes with lots of overlapping objects, full deferred rendering can skip more wasted work, which is a more accurate story than just comparing who supports ray tracing on a spec sheet. This is arguably the biggest reason two phones with similar sounding chips can feel completely different day to day, and it has nothing to do with the silicon itself. iOS apps are written in Swift, and Swift manages memory using something called automatic reference counting. In plain terms, the compiler figures out ahead of time, before the app even runs, exactly when a piece of memory is no longer needed, and inserts the instruction to free it right then. It's deterministic, there's no waiting, no cleanup past later. Android apps run on the Android runtime, which historically leaned on garbage collection instead. Rather than freeing memory the instant it's done, the system lets unused memory pile up and then periodically pauses to scan through it and clear it out in a batch. Older Android phones sometimes had a visible micro stutter during heavy memory use because of exactly this garbage collection pause happening at the wrong moment. Modern Android has closed a lot of that gap. The runtime now compiles apps ahead of time on install rather than only interpreting them as they run, which removes a lot of the historical overhead. But the underlying philosophy is still different to decide memory cleanup at compile time versus clean it up later at runtime, and that difference lies entirely in software, layered on top of whatever chip happens to be underneath it. So let's go back to the comment section fight from the start of this video, because now you've got the full picture, not just the surface one. It's not just that Apple and Android chips get measured differently by flawed benchmark apps, it's that the entire stack is built on different philosophies at every single layer, custom-built cores versus licensed reference designs that have quietly caught up, fully deferred GPU rendering versus a hybrid approach, tuned for flexibility, and compile time memory management versus a runtime garbage collector that's gotten a lot better but still works fundamentally differently. None of that adds up to a single winner. It adds up to two completely different sets of engineering trade-offs, built by companies solving different problems. Apple controlling one tightly closed hardware and software package, versus Qualcomm and MediaTek building flexible platforms that have to work across dozens of phone makers and price points. The benchmark chart people keep screenshotting at each other was never going to settle that argument, because it was never built to capture any of this. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to AnTuTu Does Tech Stuff, where we break down complicated technology into simple explanations. See beyond the specs.